Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our tools and techniques session for the 4th of May. It's great to have you here. My name is Petunia Langa, and I'll be the facilitator. And welcome. So just a few rules on our side is that our presentation is going to be 45 minutes long, and then you are welcome to use the Q&A to post your questions, and that the presentation will be loaded on the IIBA SA YouTube page. We do not send out the presentation deck and of the IIBA, and here are some of the benefits that you can access to you get access to the online library featuring 11,000 tiles, and you can access to our member exclusive webinar, and you have access to our PDF publications, articles, and industry papers and reports. You get an opportunity to connect and network with other members at local or international conferences and chapter events. The access to the global community of business analysts, the educators, the thought leaders, mentors, and coaches, and you get to save on the professional certificates and get discounts on the summits. So if you prefer to post your questions, please put them on the chat, and then I will be reading them to the presenter. Once we say that we're no longer taking questions, you still have a chance to we'll email them to you directly. We'll still ask the presenter to answer them. And yeah, so that's just basically what the session is going to be about. Without any further wastage of time, let me introduce our speaker. Our speaker is analyst, a focused business analyst. She's got over 8 years of practical experience in the business analysis space and is applying the Agile methodology for software development projects. In her experience, she has worked in the insurance and banking industries, investment and in products. And in the other 3 years, she's working in product and mobile service development and telecommunications. And she believes that a great VA must be a good communicator and a problem solver, and must think critically regardless of the industry that they work on. Let's welcome our speaker, Millicent Musuwo. Over to you, Millicent.
Oh, wow. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Petunia. You read my bio very well. And as I was listening to you, I was like, wait a minute, is this me? it sounded like you're speaking about something else. That's how well, you articulated it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, you can grab the screen. Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna share my screen and go straight into it. I'll quickly put it on presentation mode. Okay, cool. If I'm not sure if I'll be able to see, you can just let me know or type in the chat if maybe if I happen to break, because like I said, I'm currently load shedded, but I just made sure that my connection is good. But should I break at any point, just let me know. And then I think I'll be able to read in the chats. Thank you. Today's topic, I'm going to be talking about requirements gathering techniques and project execution, right? The reason why I wanted to talk about this topic is because they go, I believe that they go hand in hand. And in my experience, I learned that most organizations, they confuse what is expected from a project manager and also what is expected from a BA. And I just thought of, putting them together so that you can know that if ever you find yourself in an organization where there is no project manager and you find yourself lost, you can actually get to separate the two from understanding that there's a certain stage of the project where now you are just playing a role of a project manager, and then you can kick off your role as a BA, because I know I've worked in organizations where there were no project managers and I had to do the two roles. And there was a time I was so confused, and until I went to actually gather knowledge on the two roles so that I can know exactly that, okay, this is the reality. I'm actually still a business analyst. It's just that there is no project manager. That is why I have to play the two roles. So then I think that way it's easy and for you to execute your project. So what I can recommend, I'm quickly going to start with the project execution plan, right? What I can recommend is that have a plan in place for the project if you find yourself in that position, so that you can determine tasks or activities that you need to complete when you're feeling in a role of a project manager, as well as your usual BA roles that you need to fulfill. Because there are certain things that, like, for example, if you put down a project execution plan, you won't have to run around much if you've got all the answers that you need. And then when the project start, when I say start, I mean from requirements gathering. That's when you feel in a role of a BA. You know now that you are wearing a hat of a business analyst. So my recommendation is put down a project execution plan. And I'm going to take you briefly, very briefly, into what you can put into the project execution plan. But before I go there, I just want to highlight or share with you again on high level what that is and what is expected from you and what does the role entails, right? So it's the third phase. Actually, project execution is the third phase of the project life cycle. You can go and read about the project life cycle, then you're gonna realize that the execution plan is actually the third phase of the whole cycle. And it is the most vital of this project phases, because I can say it is what determines the success of the project, honestly, right? So what is expected? So during this phase, you'll construct your deliverables and present them to your customer and key stakeholders, which we're going to go into in the next slide. And what does the role entails? Like when you are executing a project, you need to manage things like resources, costs, schedule, and more. So if you find yourself expected to deliver this, just know that, okay, now you are wearing a hat of a project manager. And maybe your employer or your department needs to be aware, because there's nothing that is confusing like not knowing whether you are coming or you're going. I've heard, encounters with people who say, I joined this organization, I don't know whether I'm coming or I'm going. I'm so confused. And when we go into the deep of our chat, I got to realize that it's because you are not doing what a BA is supposed to be doing. And if you're a PM, it's because you are also not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So for me, I feel like if you can be able to analyze the environment that you're in or the organization, you will be able to know what is expected of you. So the main objective of me sharing this is so that it can make your life easier by understanding what exactly is what phase is the project at. Okay, it means if I need to fill this, I'm just doing a job of a project manager. They must not say it's analysis. It is not analysis, right? So I close this. Project execution plan. What is it? It is a plan that explains how project execution phase will be managed for the given project. the scope of this plan, it includes what's related to the project execution, while the project plan itself, it covers the entire project life cycle. So for BAs, I always recommend that if you're in an environment like currently, the project that I'm working on, there's no PM. And this is what I know I have to do in order before I can even start with requirements gathering, right? So I'm going to share with you why you need to develop a project execution plan. So creating it helps you ensure everybody on the project team knows what their roles and responsibilities are. Like when I worked for, I don't know if I should mention any companies, I didn't ask, but the first company that I worked for, there was no enough budget to hire project managers, and I was a junior BA. I felt like I was just thrown under the bus, which is the highlight of my career because I had a good attitude towards the project and I learned so much. I had to fill in as a project manager or / scrum master, and I would also play my role, you know, as a junior business analyst. And at that time, there was no plan as to who is impacted by this project. And that is where I got to learn all these things that I'm sharing with you guys, that looking at the requirement or looking at I can say the business case or a need that business wanted to meet or the problem that they wanted to solve. It was just on high level, like to say, okay, we want to develop an application that will help our members save money, blah, 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 right? And when I looked at it, I needed to know, okay, who is impacted by this? What is it that it will take for us to actually achieve this solution? And that's where it brought me down to, okay, if it's an application, we're going to need UX designers. In the company, there is UX and there is UI, right? It's a totally different department. It wasn't part of my team. Okay, cool. Then we're going to need front end. People are going to be developing in Angular language. So that's also another resource. It's also not part of our team. We're going to need someone who's going to design the database. We're going to need, you see, so this is how you build your project execution plan, because it doesn't help for you to break down or do grooming sessions, but with the wrong people. You need to first, if you don't have a PM, that's what I'm saying. This is the starting point. To have this execution plan where you identify resources that need to come into place. And by doing this, it helped me because I've managed to form some sort of a team, although we were coming from different departments, but we formed our own team where we were like a team for that project. And that played a huge role on the success of that project. That is why I'm emphasizing on this one before we go to the requirements gathering. And secondly, it helps you to correct resources allocation issues and brush up on any final details before you start executing your projects. So now I'm going to share with you the 3 main things that you need to include in an execution plan. Number 1 is the project organization, right? The term just refers to organizational structure of a project team. Exactly what I explained, that it was my experience and the different roles and the responsibilities of everyone. So that time I had 2 resources. I'll give an example with this particular project. I had 2 resources that were going to develop the front end. Then in my team, it was mostly Java developers, so they were and testers. So they were focusing on the back end. So forming that team and also having an overview of the project organization, it helped because everyone knew we were each other's dependency, basically. So for a front-end developer to build their piece, let's say, for example, maybe the story that they're building involved capturing the information in the front end and actually saving it. We're going to need someone from back end to take care of the saving part, what they're going to get from front end and make sure that it's saved into the right tables in the database. I hope it makes sense. So the full picture of the resources, this is what you need to include in your project execution plan. And the second one is the project scope, right? This just defines all the activities that will be executed so that stakeholders and project teams understand. I want to put this here so that stakeholders and project teams understand exactly what will be done before the project starts, so there are no future misunderstandings. I mean, also, in terms of the spirit in the team, it helps when there is a meaning, like when people know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. Remember, as a business analyst, should anything go wrong, you are the one who mostly initiate the project. You're the one who listen to what needs to be done. You're the one sometimes who design even the actual solution, of course, from a business analyst point of view, right? So if the team is unsure of what is happening, the requirements are not clear, and the scope of the project itself, it's just, it's in our street language, is not make sure. So it can somehow kill their spirit, and that will affect the project. And at the end of the day, you're going to be blamed for not delivering. So this helps a lot when people understand exactly what is the scope of the project. And based on that, then everyone will know exactly what is expected from them. And they're going to look forward to coming to work and do the work so you can deliver accordingly, right? And the third one, you need to include the project schedule. So this is just to mark the due dates for project tasks, deliverables, milestones, allowing project managers as well to, or business analysts, if you are playing this role, to keep track of your team's progress. In Agile, if you're following the Agile methodology, it means you're gonna use things like sprint planning, you know, to know exactly, okay, or grooming sessions, what are we taking in the next 10 days, what piece of work, what deliverable are we going to present, or are we going to demo to business people, and how long is it going to take us, you know, when do we start, and also to size your tasks as well. So this go into the whole overall project schedule. It will determine when exactly are we, what is the go live, and when exactly are we aiming to complete the project. These are the three main. There's many, of course, depending on the organization that you work in, and also as well as your style of work. But these are the key three things that you need to include in your project execution plan. Okay, so I'm gonna move to my next slide. Okay, I'm going to go straight into requirements gathering techniques, and I'm going to share with you guys when to apply which technique, right? So we've got 5 mostly used techniques. The first one being document analysis, right? This involves gathering available and relevant documents for your business or project case. These are documents that are currently existing in the company, right? So the reason why I mentioned this one, I also applied it in my experience, and I felt like now it's safe to say it is a good starting point in your requirements gathering. If there are any documents that you can read, especially when you need to understand the system, the existing systems, or you need to just have like knowledge of the domain. Like, for example, let's say you've always worked in telecommunications, and now you've now joined insurance. If there are existing documents that you can actually study, this is the starting point for you, just to get that knowledge, so that when you gather the requirements, you know that you've covered almost everything. I know it can never be like 100%, but it must make sense, and the solution must be good enough to meet the need of our customers. Our employers or business people are actually our customers, right? So the second technique that you can apply is surveys or questionnaires. This one involves gathering information or data without one-on-one interaction. So this is good because it helps to get a lot of information without having to like meet people, schedule meetings. You know, sometimes stakeholders are not available. For example, let's say you're working in a project that is about developing a product for a certain market. You need to find out from them, those people who need this product, or in terms of the challenges that they're facing. Remember, as a business analyst, we also make sure that we help business stakeholders to implement what they need, not just what they want. It needs to bring value to the business, whatever solution that you are writing requirements for. You don't just do it for the sake of doing it. We also take care of that aspect and we advise accordingly. So you're going to need to find out from those people so that the product will meet their needs, right? And the good thing about it is that you can ask both open and closed questions to evaluate, and you can actually get a lot of data, right? And the third one is shadowing. So this one involves accompanying a user to see a process or the process that they go through every day. I have done this one when I was working at Nedbank. I was once placed in a project in Nedbank, and we were improving their current systems. So the systems that they were using were, I can almost say, for lack of a better word, all over the place. So they just wanted one central solution, also in newer technologies as well. So meaning this was for call centers as well as people who are working at the branch. So sometimes as part of requirements gathering, we'll be required to go to the branch just to see their whole process. If someone comes and they want to open a bank account, what is the process currently? Because you know that, I'm sure you know as a BA that understanding the S is very important, especially when you're working in a project where you want to improve that particular S. You need to know exactly how it works. So shadowing helps in those instances, is one of the techniques that you can apply. And you get to have silent requirements. I call them silent requirements, the requirements that stakeholders will not tell you. Sometimes if you walk into the branch and say, hey, I'm here to get the requirements, they don't know what to tell you. But if you observe from how they work and how they do things, you are able to note the gaps. You are able to say, okay, there's too much paper involved here. Let's see how we can automate that part of the process. You get what I mean? And also, yes, it can be time consuming for BAs, but it is one of the techniques that are proven to work, right? And the fourth one is interviews. So this one involves asking the right questions and getting feedback instantly. It's basically about just putting the right stakeholders in the room and interview them. When I say right stakeholder, sometimes you can have, let me just use an example with the branch situation, right? If you put there someone who just joined the bank at the branch, and maybe they have like 3 months, they're still trying to learn how to do their job, that is not the right stakeholder. You cannot interview such a person. But if you even interview the person who was involved in implementing those existing systems, those are still the right stakeholders for you, because they know it in and out. Or even if you interview a tester, I get to interview a solution architecture because I want to know because I want to know what was in their mind at that time and to understand how things are currently. So that if you are supposed or you are expected to propose a solution, you actually going to propose a solution from understanding of how things work at that time, or I'll use the word currently, right? So interviews is one of them, but the key here is just to make sure that you are speaking to the right people, and it's your responsibility as a business analyst to identify the right stakeholders. And the last one is workshop. This one involves like multiple stakeholders in one room to specify the requirements. I I love it because it's like people are working together and specifying their requirements, right? So the key or the tip that I can share is just to make sure that you make it clear what is the goal of the workshop, right? So that the workshop can be quick and no one is lost, because I know it's very easy for business people to start talking about something else, and then it leads to this other, and then at the end of the day, the workshop is over, you've got nothing, you didn't gather any requirements. So as a BA, you need to find ways to drive the workshop in such a way that it fulfills a goal. So usually how I do personally, I like to define the goal for the workshop, to say, even before they come, to say, this is what I'm expecting out of this workshop. And that is going to drive the conversation to say, okay, point number one, this is what I'm expecting. Finance, how does this impact you? What are your requirements? Like, for example, the recent one that I did, I was actually gathering requirements of a portal, a user portal, and there is like a solution for the company, and they needed a portal where they can do like configurations. So I had everyone in the room at once, and I was just asking questions to say, okay, I want to know how many users are there. If I identify the users for the portal, then now the next step is to know, how are they affected by the portal? How will the portal makes it easy for them to do their job? Finance, what do you think? You find that from them. If it means you tell each and every representative of the department to say, this is the goal for you, this is what I'm expecting to get out of the workshop, let's start with you, that's fine. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is that make sure that you drive the objective of the workshop, because you don't want to waste people's time. And I'm sure all of you know that to get a stakeholder in the room, I think this is a national difficulty, like just to get stakeholders to sign off something, it's so hard. What more with getting them to stop whatever that they're doing and actually come to the room to attend your workshop? So it means like you can hardly get them. If you got them, you need to make sure that you don't waste their time, okay? And now I'm gonna take you through when to apply which technique, right? I'm gonna start with document analysis. That's the first one, and I'll show the pros and the cons and when to apply it. With the document analysis, what I like is there is no dependency, right? You don't depend on a stakeholder to show up in order for you to get the knowledge. That's the thing. But a disadvantage is that you will not be able to ask the questions. So based on this, you're gonna pick which one will work for you. And where I can recommend that you apply this is when you need to get up to speed with systems or domain knowledge. Because as a BA, the first thing that you want to do when you get on a project or when you join a department or when you switch to a different industry, make sure that you gain some knowledge into how systems work, particularly around the rules and the actual domain. If there are products that are there, learn about those products. And there are also governing rules. When I say rules, I don't necessarily only mean like the business rules. Like if you join insurance, you're gonna learn that there are governing rules around those products, and that determine how the system should work. So make sure that you learn that, right? And then the survey, what I like about it is that it's easy to evaluate and also obtain the data. But the disadvantage is that people can ask you questions, which I think is fair because you're the one looking for information here. But also, when do you apply it? When you need to obtain inputs from many stakeholders. Obviously, you can have hundreds of meetings. You're gonna, let's say maybe you're developing a product and you're supposed to come up with a solution that will meet their needs. Because the thing is, if I am owning a business right now and I want to launch a product, and as a business analyst, you want to come up with a solution that will make it easy for the business to make lots of money. serving their customers. If you need to do a survey in order for you to design that product or that new offering, you can go around asking people in your community or whatever target market of your customer, the company you work for. What is this? What are your difficulties? Like, what are your needs? How does this affect you? But it's nice to have a survey so that you know if you send it out there, if people answer and give you honest answers, you are able to collect the information and you are able to come up with a better solution or better requirements that can be implemented, right? And then shadowing. The advantage of this one is that you get the real life data and you get to have the hands-on experience. Sometimes if it's not that busy and you've seen how they do how they run their processes, you are able to actually have a feel, do the actual transaction to see how exactly it works and what are the if statements that you pick in there, and also what are the gaps that you feel in there. The advantage is that the thing is real, like you are not hearing it from someone telling you how it works, you're actually experiencing it. And the thing about it is that it's time consuming for ABA. I mean, I know most of us, depending on whatever levels that we are on, we work on multiple projects. Sometimes you work on a big project and some few change requests, and you are needed to be in certain meetings. You can't spend the whole day or the whole week at a branch or sitting with people doing their job, just you shadowing them. So it can be very time consuming. But when do you apply it? When stakeholder has low capacity, and it means you can't interview anyone, you cannot sit with anyone in a workshop. So that literally cannot be found. And you need high accuracy of your requirements. It's better to get the real life data. And maybe you need to improve the process. It's better to go through the actual process, right? And then the other one is interview. The good thing about interview is that also you get the real-time answers. The disadvantage, stakeholders need time to attend the sessions, and most of the time they will not be available at a time that you want them to. And when do you apply it? When you need detailed requirements. If the requirements really need to be detailed, because organizations differ. Some organizations, as a business analyst, you just write requirements from a business point of view, and a system analyst take over, right? And then the last one is workshops. Advantages with workshop is that you get the high involvement and high acceptance, right? So everyone is there. And it's just that you won't always get everyone. So it is extremely time consuming. That's the only disadvantage. But this is extremely important. For me, in my experience, I'd say workshops is a once and for all kind of a thing, especially when you are dealing with complex scenarios where requirements are inconsistent. I'm sure some of you can attest to this, that sometimes requirements are inconsistent, and like I said in the beginning, that it can affect the mood in the team. And once you lose that, you know, there's nothing nicer than working on a project where the team is just give you a positive energy. Like every time the scrum in the morning takes like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, because everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. There are no blockers. If there were blockers, they're resolved. It's so nice. So running workshops for me, it has helped me to execute my projects or to write my requirements in a way that when we kick off development, you don't need to do back and forth, right? And so bring this back. And my conclusion before I close or before I take questions, number one, I would say read documents first to gather initial knowledge, right? And then secondly, use interviews to gather different perspectives. And then thirdly, facilitate workshops in a case of complex inconsistencies, not all the time. And then build prototypes to get feedback from stakeholders. Sometimes it's nice to show something tangible if you really want to confirm and make sure that the way you are given requirements is actually the correct way. And lastly, schedule sync meetings between stakeholders. It's always nice to have those confirmation meetings, to have all the stakeholders to say, are we on the right path? And yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Millicent. That was very insightful and very knowledgeable. We have a few questions, and I've noted one hand from Fiona. I don't know whether we should start with the questions that came in earlier. We've got Ruben, who's asking what level of details does one have to go to when drafting a project execution plan as a traditional BA? Do you need to draft all PM artifacts such as Gantt chart, resource allocation, budget cost allocation, etc.?
So this is just it can never be like a standard. There can never be a general standard for all the BAs, because you are filling in a role that is not yours. So to know what exactly are the deliverables is the conversation that you have with your line manager. And also, if I were to advise you to be proactive, just look at how things are done and what is missing. For me, if I have to fill in a project management role, I'm going to do the things that we need. You cannot deliver everything, but you're going to look at, okay, what do we need in order for us? Like everything you do, it has to have a reason. If maybe business, they've already allocated budget, there's no need for you to go through the budget to say, okay, if we're going to have a senior BA, and what is how much it's going to cost, for how long, how many, no. If they've already done that, you don't need to. But from a PM point of view, as a BA, if you need to jump in and fill that role, it has to be for the success of the project. It has to be for you and your team to be able to work on the requirements and deliver the project.
Okay, thank you so much. Another question that we have is from Joe Newbert, who says, can you give us an examples for document analysis, for RE document analysis? Give examples of documents we should gather and what we should analyze.
Okay, so you can look for documents such as the solution architecture and just information about the product. Usually, just to be specific, what can I say? If you're joining insurance and you're working in an environment where you are supporting people on the ground, right? People on the ground, I mean like call center, right? Maybe they are working on withdrawals. Every time there's a funeral and someone make a call or send a request to say, I would like to withdraw my funeral cover, and an error happens somehow in the system. Obviously, as a BA, if you are in a team that resolve those issues, you will be requested to do some sort of analysis before a developer can look at it, right? And I would say you need to read documents about that funeral plan and how it is set up on the system. So this puts you in a good position for you to do your job and do it well. Because when that comes, you will be able to try to duplicate whatever that they were trying to do. If it's a withdrawal of a funeral plan, maybe you can get some case data or whatever data to go onto the system and say, okay, let me try to withdraw, let me kill this member. and then try to go to withdraw. Kill them, I mean, on the system, like to make their product not active anymore so that you can see what actually happened. Do you also face what they say they're facing? But for you to be able to start investigating that or replicating what they say they're going through, you must have read a document about federal policy as a product, right? And you must have read a document about how the system actually gets to do a withdrawal and what are the rules, what makes it a successful withdrawal. It's when you get what kind of a response from the system, right? So those are the kind of documents that you need to read, yeah?
Yeah. And we've got Mbuso saying, is it advisable for BAs to make recommendations to business during the elicitation of requirements?
Yes, actually is one of the rules for you to make recommendations. That is why if you want to be a remarkable business analyst, I think challenge yourself to make recommendations because it puts you in a position where you're also challenged as a professional to gain knowledge so that when you make recommendations, you make recommendations from knowledge, right? From wisdom, basically. Because when you gather knowledge and apply it in your life, you become wise. So whatever recommendations are going to work for them, it's going to challenge you. So I would say, please aim for that. Aim for that. And they're going to see the value that you bring into the company.
All right. And then we had a question from Spesitle to say, how do you determine when you should use each particular technique? I think you've covered that in your presentation, but you can just touch on it a bit.
I think she asked before I covered it.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
Yes.
But she can just confirm if she feels answered or I need to repeat myself. But I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a note. We've got a note from Ruben. He says that one of the cons I've seen with the surveys is that the response might not be comprehensive. As such, as such, the technique should not be used in isolation, in isolation of the other. People generally do not like surveys.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then also Lucinda says, just a note on prototypes, I generally draw a proposal detailing the proposed solution as there is not always time to do a presentable prototype. I would detail the request, demonstrate the proposed solution with mock-ups, and ask for feedback or sign off based on that. Helpful. Thank you, Millicent. So I'm going to also take a hand from Fiona Suraj. I've noted your hand. Also, Lesego has also got a hand. Fiona?
Sorry, that was in error.
Oh, all right. Lesego, you've got a hand. Okay.
Sorry, it's an error as well.
All right. Okay. So
I
also
actually.
okay. We'll
no,
also
I
have
wanted to say I like the comment that they made because even in my presentation, I did mention that survey and shadowing are literally optional. They are one of the techniques, but they're optional. Like if we're gonna share we're recording the session, right?
Yes.
So they'll be able to, yeah. I agree with the comment that you just read regarding surveys. That is very true.
Okay. Preshala Naidu, I see you also have a hand. Okay. So Lily also said that from experience, that is the expectations of business, that recommendations are made by business. Otherwise, we just glorified PAs. And then we've got Cecilia says that on document analysis, RE product doc, I also recommend playing around on the system. Most product docs tend to be outdated, so it's always wise to view as is system.
Yeah, agreed. Depending on some organizations, they keep their documents up to date, some don't. So if you realize that they don't, because also again, some organizations you will not be able to, depending on what they offer, play around the system. It's not everywhere that you will get that opportunity to play around the system. So usually you end up sitting with a tester to tell you how it works, or to take you through the screenshots, or so it's not all organizations that will allow you to do what you prefer, but I agree that's the better option.
All right. I see that there was an answered question on so Joe also said that this is a question that Mbuso asked, that he believes that he suggests not to speaking too early is a common pitfall BA sometimes fall into. Elicitation is the initial stage, recommendations before analysis, and synthesis is premature. I don't know if maybe you'd like to touch on that, Joe, also, because those views are welcomed. So he was basically saying that he doesn't believe that you should make recommendations in the elicitation of the requirements.
Or are you talking to me? I thought you're asking Joe to have to...
I was.
Sorry, you were. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sorry,
yeah.
you can hear me now. Sorry, I was struggling to find mute with multiple windows. I didn't know I could talk tonight either, not being able to see anybody. Yeah, I think if you look at the requirements engineering framework, there are 5 distinct stages, and they don't need to be followed sequentially. They can be performed in an iterative way. But elicitation is about the investigation, right? It's about finding facts. It's about seeking opinions. So if we go out and we do these workshops, we do these interviews, we do these various elicitation tasks, basically we're just getting a ton of raw data, opinion, perspectives. We're only speaking to one person. So until we've filtered through that, until we've synthesized it, analyzed it, it probably is a bit premature to start suggesting ways of fixing things. I've seen in the past people do that. I mean, I did it myself when I was a young BA, and you end up just sort of having to go back and say, sorry, that wasn't quite suggested, or I'm not suggesting it now. I'm sorry, to get your expectations up. So I do find it's better to hold off on recommendations until you think your work is done.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those views. We also have got Sponiso Mapalala, who says that on stakeholder interviews, they assist in gathering detailed requirements and building a good relationship with your stakeholders during the duration of the project, beneficial in the SIT and UAT or any other gaps identified during the project journey also sign off. Yeah. Are there any other questions or anyone that likes to add on the topic? All right. All right, thank you so much. We are closing. So the presentation will be uploaded on YouTube. A big, oh, all right. I see, Joe, you also added something to say another angle on document analysis rather than background reading refers to the study of operational process through artifacts that are used or produced during the process. It gives clues to entities, attributes, business rules, actors, flows. So get some examples when you meet for interviews. Thank you very much, Joe. That also just adds to what we were discussing today. And that, let me just also just thank everyone for attending our session. It was very insightful. We've learned a lot as business analysts, and we hope that we're able to apply the different requirements, gathering techniques. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We're giving you 9 minutes back of your evening. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Millicent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Millicent. It was a very great, insightful presentation and talk. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Are we allowed to leave?
Just hold on.
Okay.
Leave when the
Fine.
guests have left.
Okay, it's fine.
I'm just gonna stop the recording.